Mike says I have 911 on speed dial. Just a fast finger.
And by the way, I'm Debbie with Trekking with Deb and Mike, and we're really glad you're here. Now on to the story.
Well, we came to Spokane, Washington to camp host at Riverside State Park at the Bowl and Pitcher Campground because we had things we had to take care of, like see doctors, get some new tires on the truck and brakes, and I needed to get some new glasses. So it's a really easy position here, except for this year. In the first 3 weeks, we had to call 911 3 times. The first time we were woke up by one of the campers and there was a huge fire across the river from us. Well, they did catch the arsonist finally, and it turns out there were 2 different arsonists, one on the south side and one on the north side. I guess they were splitting up, I don't know. Another night, we heard gunshots across the river, and I don't know whatever became of that. Living and work camping or camp hosting in a city versus the forest are 2 totally different dynamics. In the forest, you have the people who show up on Fridays and they're so happy to be at the lake and they have their music on loud, and they're, the biggest problem we usually have is somebody lighting a fire when there's a burn ban, which can be a big deal. But in the city, you have city problems. You also have the people with mental health problems and drug problems, and that was a 911 call too. When we could see that there was going to be potential for partying in at the lake, we would just let the rangers know, and they would make rounds about 10 o'clock at night, and everybody settled down pretty well. Well, here in Riverside State Park, it's a huge park, and they have a lot of area to patrol and cover. We had a person coming through, and I could hear him yelling. He had headphones on. You could tell him that he was probably hallucinating and talking really loud. So we watched him, and I was looking for the ranger who was on duty for the day. And then Mike came in and said, he's threatening to kill people. So that automatically switched it to 911. So it took about 20 minutes for the rangers to get here, but he had gone into the restroom where the park aid was. He's just a young man in his probably late 20s, and I saw him bolting out, and so we just kept an eye out for him. He was going to go back and sit in his truck by the restrooms and warn people that were going in and to and from the restrooms not to go in there, but I said that he had a bag and we weren't sure if he had a weapon or not, so we better just stay further away. In the 1980s, I was working in the emergency room and we had a trauma call. There was a man who was in his 40s. He was a big man, over 6 foot tall, and he had been in a motorcycle accident and had a head trauma. One of the first things you do is with the traumas is you make sure they don't hurt themselves more. So the EMTs were holding him down, even though he kept saying, "I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you." The head injury had him confused, and I'm sure he was afraid because he didn't know what was going on. The next thing we do is expose the entire patient so that we can see if there's any other injuries, underlying injuries that we might be missing. So we usually cut their clothes off. My job was to pull the boots off. He kept still struggling to get up, but I pulled his left boot off and a small pistol fell out of his boot and it was spinning around on the ground. I looked up at the police officer and we went, whoa, he really meant he wanted to kill us. I don't think he meant he wanted to kill us. He was just afraid. So the police officer reached over and took the other boot off, and there was a knife strapped to his ankle. So after that experience, even though it was 45 years ago, I still take it very seriously when somebody says they're going to kill you. Another camper who'd been hiking on the trail at the far end of the park said he heard the man preaching and threatening that God was going to kill everybody, and he he steered clear of the fellow and headed back to his campsite. The rangers arrived in about 20 minutes, and then 40 minutes later, the police arrived. They were able to talk him down, and they offered him a courtesy ride after they searched his bags to make sure he didn't have any weapons. If he had a warrant, they probably would have taken him to the sheriff's department. And if nothing else, he didn't have a park pass, and he wasn't going to buy one, so that was good enough reason to have him exit the park. But also, he was disturbing the peace. I was surprised how desensitized people have become to being threatened by other people or being in uncomfortable situations. They say when you see something, say something. But even though people were being threatened, nobody called 911. Don't worry, I was on it. I don't know if this is one of the downfalls of camp hosting, because it did affect the other campers. I don't think it's inherent only to campgrounds. I think it doesn't matter where you live in the cities now. It's just a different world. This may be our last time camp hosting, and it's been good for us, but it's time for us to kind of switch things up. If you follow along, we have some exciting changes in our life coming ahead. How would you respond in that type of situation? If you were out and felt threatened by somebody, would you just avoid the situation, or would you call 911?